Some of the dating patterns that I've noticed that comes up quite a bit is just having like outdated thoughts as
Mm.
it relates to dating, such as, there aren't any good options. There, there's just so many men out here playing games. Dating is a waste of time. I'm just gonna stop dating because I'm tired of all the frustration and discouragement, etc., that I'm feeling. And I always encourage women to reframe the way you think about dating.
Hi, I'm Lennis Woods Mullins, and I love to help women to vibe, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. So come on, let's vibe. I think we can all agree that time seems to be accelerated, regardless of what the age is. But in midlife, things seem to get even more busy and sometimes, in some ways, more complicated. And one of the things that I hear my girlfriends talk about who are single is how complicated it seems that the dating game is when you get into midlife. It just seems so different, especially if you're on your second time around, you've been married and now you're divorced or separated, or unfortunately, you might have been widowed, but you want to still get back out there and date, and you don't have a clue as to what to do and what kinds of things you should be thinking about when you're dating. Well, that's why I'm so excited to have Dr. Michelle Henry with us. She is a dating and relationship coach with a PhD in counseling and psychology and a dual certification with health and life coaching. So she's like the triple whammy. She knows it all. And she basically empowers women to break the cycle of unfulfilling relationships and to attract a partner they truly desire. Dr. Michelle Henry, welcome to the Vibe Living Podcast. It's wonderful having you here today.
Thank you. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. It is truly an honor to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I met, so to speak, Dr. Michelle, as I like to call her, on TikTok. She was doing such a great job, and I was so enthralled by the things that she was saying. Because as a married woman, I haven't thought much about what it's like to be dating if you're over 40. And I thought, gee, I haven't had anybody come on and talk about that in like a few years. I have to ask you, Dr. Michelle, what got you started talking about this, particularly for women over 40?
Oh gosh. Though I have known my husband for almost 9 years and we've been married for almost 5 years, I still remember my dating journey like it was yesterday. And it's a huge part of why I feel so passionate about speaking to women about dating and relationships, especially women over 40, because I remember the all the challenges and just questioning like, why is it so challenging? What am I doing wrong? And I had all the negative thoughts, and I often found myself feeling really discouraged. And it wasn't until I realized that I needed additional support. I needed to work on my mindset. And when I started working on my mindset, I found that the my dating journey improved, and I started to enjoy it. And it was very exciting for me to find a new way and to have a more open mind, which led to meeting my husband, the man that I truly desired, who I believe is right for me. And it just made everything I experienced worth it.
Wow. Now, had you been married before, or was this your first marriage?
First marriage.
Wow, that's amazing. I do know other women where this was their first marriage, and I know other women, and I'm one of them, who got remarried. I got remarried at 45, and there were so many dynamics that had I known what I know now, I probably would have done differently because we both had children in the home. But, you know, I didn't really experience some of the things I hear that women experience now with the dating over 40. And I think the only reason why might have been because I have known him since I was 4 years old. So there wasn't a whole lot of surprises there. I mean, I knew him. So that kind of got rid of some of the stuff. But in general, what are some of the common patterns that women over 40 run into when it comes to attracting a healthy, long lasting relationship?
Some of the dating patterns that I've noticed that comes up quite a bit is just having like outdated thoughts as
Mm,
it relates to dating, such as, there aren't any good options. There's, there's just so many men out here playing games. Dating is a waste of time. I'm just gonna stop dating because I'm tired of all the frustration and discouragement, et cetera, that I'm feeling. And, you know, I, I always encourage women to reframe the way you think about dating. Think of it as, there's a lesson in every experience. Every encounter can, teach you something new about yourself and how you might want to show up in a way that will help you to tweak your dating game, so to speak. And, instead of saying, that everyone's playing games, you can say, well, okay, I met this person who clearly doesn't have the same intentions. I'm going to keep dating until I meet the man who
mm.
has the same
Same
intentions.
intention.
Yeah.
That's interesting because you said something that I think was very key. It sounds like what we're talking about then is mindset in terms of the
Yeah.
things that we tell ourselves. And that theme that you're saying that they have a tendency to tell themselves. I've noticed that midlife women in general kind of run into that thing when it comes to their weight, when it comes to their aging, when it comes to the way they look. A lot of this negative self-talk, almost like doubling down on resetting really, really low expectations just in case what they really want doesn't happen. Why do you think we do that?
The the anxiety that is often felt just even from thinking about being disappointed
Mhm.
and thinking, okay, well, if I prepare myself for the worst or if I kind of lower my standards or not get too excited, then perhaps I won't feel as disappointed. Perhaps it won't sting as much. And also, again, going back to mindset, how do sometimes just the way we feel or think about ourselves can also set us up to show up and think in a way that's not always conducive or supportive to what we truly desire.
Yes, it's interesting because you can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I
Mhm.
subscribe to the idea that the things you think about, ponder on, the things you tell yourself truly will come to pass. So therefore, if
Yes.
you're thinking that everything out there is bad, the guys are, not serious and they're not, they can't be trusted and there's no one out there and the ones that are all bad, then that's probably what you're going to attract. So, how can we flip the script and begin thinking
Mhm.
differently and actually believe it?
Uh-uh. I, I again, I would start. One of the places where women can start is with just reframing the way you think they think about the experiences.
Could you
You know,
give us an example of what you mean by reframing?
hmm you know, I, the last experience I had felt disappointing. But I look forward to the next experience that could be that one experience that feels exciting, that feels encouraging, that's going to lead to the type of relationship that I deserve, that I desire. And when women continue to reinforce more positive thoughts about dating, that actually aligns with what is expected, what is desired, then they're in a better position to attract that. And it will also help with experiencing dating in a more exciting way. Like it'll feel fun as
Right.
opposed to when women say, dating just isn't fun. I don't like it. Instead of saying it isn't fun, I don't like it, reframe it. Dating is interesting. I'm curious. I'm going to stay open and see what happens.
Instead of approaching it like you're getting ready to have a root canal.
Right.
Some people, it's like, oh my God, if you feel that bad about what you're getting ready to do, then why do it? And why
Mm,
would you expect anything else but bad things to happen since you're already dreading? I've heard
yeah.
some people say, I'm dreading this, I'm dreading this day. And deep down
Yes.
inside, I think what I feel like they're really saying is, I'm really dreading how this person might be perceiving me and, how they might look at me, that kind of thing. And it almost seems like we need to really take a look at cultivating more clarity and confidence, especially after past dating disappointments or maybe even
Yes.
relationship endings. So, how do we do that? I want to know this myself. I'm not looking to date, but just in general, how can we cultivate more confidence as midlife women?
Mm, yeah, as far as the clarity, it's important to take a step back because sometimes when we're too close to the situation or the experiences, it can feel really overwhelming and it can cloud our beliefs and how we feel. So when you take a step back, you are creating distance between yourself and the situation, which allows women to kind of see it for what it is, to see the patterns, and it also opens up space to think and feel more freely so that you can remind yourself of what's truly desired. And sometimes, if there's any ambiguity, it can be helpful to journal, to do the things that clear your mind so that you feel more grounded, whether it's going for a walk or having ex- allowing yourself to incorporate more movement, just so your mind can be more open and think more clearly about what's desired. And sometimes if we think about where earlier messages started, that can also help us to understand why there's so much ambiguity, because perhaps, you know, women struggle with knowing what they want, having clarity, because they often subscribe to what other people thought would be
Kind of
desirable.
pulling back the layers to see where this is coming from in the first place, which is interesting because I find in my work with working with women and with their overall wellness, one of the things that sometimes we need a little prodding and pushing to do is to peel back the layers and take a look at the causation. We're so used to finding ways to treat the symptoms. This doesn't feel good, so I'm going to do this, or this doesn't feel good, so I'm
Mhm,
going to do that.
mhm.
But knowing this is going to feel good, this doesn't feel good, so I'm going to stop. Peel back the layers and figure out why this doesn't feel good. It's not always a fun thing, but I feel like in midlife it's like a necessary thing.
Absolutely. I agree. And, when women allow themselves to do that, to really take an honest look at
Mhm.
the layers, then they're able to kind of let go of some of the thoughts, some of the blocks that makes it difficult to have clarity and to be able to speak and embrace what's truly desired. And then, through that release comes more clarity and confidence in the process.
Yeah, I'm going through that process. It's interesting. I've gone through it at different points in my life. It's, seasonal things when I turn 50, when I turn 60. Now, in a couple of years, I'll be 70. And so I'm looking at some things differently and finding the courage to peel things back because even though I work with women all day long and I talk about all these kinds of things all day long, I don't have it all together. I don't know.
Mm,
Yeah,
yep.
it's one thing to be able to tell somebody else, do as I say, is another thing to say, do as I
Yes.
do. Physician, heal thyself, right? And one of the things I think that keeps rearing its ugly head is that
Mm,
after all these years of experiences and successes and failures, which I prefer to look at as learning experience rather than failures, after all of this, there's still that thing about me where I'm not quite confident about being good enough. And it seems to be a reoccurring
mm,
thing with so many women. Like they have to be more and in order to just get what they minimally want. How can we begin to
mm.
change that and arrive to the point that you are good enough as you are right now in this moment in time? You're good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Look in the mirror and say to yourself that you are more than enough. And, speaking positive affirmations, Like when I look at myself, I see beauty, I see intelligence, I see wittiness, I see creativity, I see love, you know, and also, I go back to journaling. It's a nice way to kind of brain dump and get a lot of negativity, out of our heads. And and also just being mindful of the different messages that we allow to come in. Sometimes that's by way of relationships and conversations that we're having with other people. Sometimes you have to take a look at that so that you can separate in a way that doesn't allow you to take it in so much, because then you start believing it and not realizing, oh, that's part of the root right there.
Right, exactly. I did learn to do this with my husband, and especially if it's something that's kind of negative or something I don't agree with. I said,
Mm,
well, that's an interesting opinion. And then leave it at that. Instead of like, why did
yeah.
you do that? Was that for me? Oh my goodness. No, I don't do that anymore because I've
Yes.
learned that people do have opinions and they do have feelings, but those feelings are not necessarily correct. And it certainly should not be what we use to define ourselves. And I also
Yes.
think that this is a time in our life where we need to be more inner directed for our validation instead of outer directed. Sometimes I think that women look at dating as a way to validate that they really are attractive, that they really
Yeah.
are wanted. And I'm just wondering if that's the best way to look at dating.
No, no, you certainly don't want to look for validation outside yourself. I mean, yes, it feels good to be validated by someone else, but there are going to be times when you feel invalidated. And that's why it's important for women to really embrace, their inner worth, and being able to say to yourself that, even if I have a day where I'm not feeling very good, or, I don't feel like I look so good, that's just today. This is a moment in time. And just because I encounter someone who might feel differently, or who's viewing me differently, does not mean that I have to internalize that and take that in, but know that I am still a beautiful woman regardless. Because if a woman is on a date and she's being told, or is being made to feel like she's not beautiful, then it's important to know that that's not about her, that's about the other person.
Definitely on a date like that, that would just really be a mini date. Okay, talk to you later. I wouldn't be sitting around for that kind of thing much longer. And I have a very good friend who is about 72. And she has a real healthy way of looking at it. She's been single for a very long time. And
Mm,
she just knows that at the right time, in the right place, that her, as we say, those of us who might be Christians, her Boaz, well, her man, her main person will show up. And in the meantime, she's learned to be content with herself. And to me, that seems like something that's really emotionally and mentally clear and very healthy. What are
yeah.
your thoughts about that? Because sometimes we have such aggressive timelines in terms, okay, this is when this is supposed to happen, and why did it
Mm,
happen? And we set ourselves up in ways that kind of make us feel bad about ourselves. And I'm just wondering how realistic that really is.
yeah, the timelines should just be considered as general guidelines, because the reality is they can change. They're unpredictable. There's still, even if you map out your timeline, there are still so many unknowns. And when women are more focused on their mental and emotional well-being, that's something that's where women can feel like they have more control, because we should always be working on ourselves. Personal growth doesn't stop at any point.
Mhm.
Timelines can stop at some
Yeah.
point.
Mhm.
So the more you're feeding into yourself, showing yourself love and care and kindness, giving yourself grace, regardless of what's happening with that timeline, you can just kind of go with the flow, and just know that as long as you're taking care of yourself and you're willing to show up, when when the one shows up, you'll be ready.
No. It's interesting because I was looking at your bio and it mentioned that you like to help women to cultivate clarity and confidence when it comes to dating with intention. And I thought, dating with intention. What does that mean? I mean, are you dating with intention to marry that person, or what does that actually mean, dating with intention?
Yeah. So when you're dating with intention, there's a solid knowing. There's groundedness. It's really having clarity as well in terms of what you truly desire while dating. When you have intention, you're not easily moved and shaken by external circumstances. So, going back to that example that we talked about earlier, if a woman is on a date and, the man is not saying very positive things or acting in a way that would cause her to feel supported or beautiful, that's okay because her intention is to attract or, to date to attract the type of man that she desires for a long-term, meaningful relationship. And when you're grounded in your intention, the superficial experiences, the superficial encounters won't won't shake you as much.
Right. It's not like what defines you. It reminded me of something else because I'm really wondering about this, if it's changed at all. I was never good at dating, especially if it was the wrong guy. I had a real issue with trying to figure out a way to kind of get out of it without hurting any feelings. And I think it could still be true today. How does one do that? A woman goes out with a guy a couple of times and she knows, no, 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 maybe she knows the first time. How does she pull away with that with still having her self-esteem intact and hopefully the other person's self-esteem as well?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's related to communication and the power of communication. Because with every encounter, it's important to be clear about, what's desired, what the intention is, and to not only communicate that, for women to communicate that, but to also ask like your what is your desire? What is your desire or what is your intention for dating? And to let and to be very clear that, this is an opportunity for us to get to know each other. And if a woman reaches a point where she recognizes that it's not a match, she can say, it's been a good experience getting to know you. And, based on what I'm looking for and what my intentions are, I don't believe that this is a relationship or an encounter that I can see happening long term, but I am grateful for this opportunity. And, she can even share some other positive experiences that came from the encounter. But it's just communicating effectively and openly.
And it can be awkward, but look at it this way. Think how much more awkward it'd be to go out with that guy again when you already know this is believe
Yeah.
me, I lived that. I lived that. I was not good at doing that. I would always take it maybe a date or two too far, and then it would still be uncomfortable. All you're doing is just
Mhm.
waylaying that uncomfortable conversation if it is uncomfortable for you. My girlfriends thought I was nuts. They'd be like, kick her to the curb or kick him to the curb, whatever. But I was like, well, I don't want to feel bad. And so I would end up feeling bad. And I think sometimes
Oh.
we as women, as nurturers, have a tendency to put our needs emotionally on the back burner because we're so busy taking
Mhm.
care of everybody else, the different roles that we play. But we really have to learn to, I think, even be better at making sure we're representing our true feelings and thoughts rather
Mm.
than pushing it back and taking the other person's feelings under consideration more so than our own.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And remembering that too, that, my needs, my desires matter. And, if I am more concerned about the other person's needs, then I am going to neglect myself in the process. And that's not showing self-love.
Yeah, that's right, which is a huge issue around that I find a lot with women over 40 is that many of them don't really love themselves. They think they do, but they really don't because that whole self love thing can kind of be a panacea, kind of a thing that people say. But do you really?
Yeah.
You know that you truly do love yourself when you make mistakes and you're still okay with you. You know, when you can look in the
Yeah.
mirror without the makeup and all the other stuff that we do and still look there and say, I see you, and I love you. And just looking in the mirror, that is probably one of the biggest challenges that the women that I work with have is just looking in the mirror,
Mhm.
seeing themselves for who they really are and accepting that. That's not to say that maybe there could be some improvements, you want to make some changes, that's fine. But being able to arrive at a point of love right then and there at that moment in time, exactly how you are, where you are, as you are,
Mhm.
that's the epitome of actually having self love. And that's okay if you're not there yet. We're all a work in progress. I always tell my clients the
Yes.
first step is recognizing that, hey, this is something I need to work on.
Yes. Exactly.
And that this is something that I know that maybe I'm not the greatest at. That doesn't make me bad or wrong or anything else. It just means we're all a work in progress. And that's why I was so glad to have you on here today because I really want to send the message to women who are considering dating or women who already are dating. It's just like anything else. It's a process. And it's
Yep.
really not it's not so much about the destination because we all kind of know where we want to go with it, hopefully finding that person we can partner with, but it's also about the journey.
Mhm. Yes.
Yes, and all the tools and tips and techniques and experiences that we learn along the way that aid us to direct us to, the ideal person, just like what happened with you. I think that's such a happy ending that you actually found someone after so many years of being single. That's fantastic. So many women think, oh, it's never going to happen. I'm too old at this point.
Right.
It's not going to happen. Yeah.
Right.
Did you
Yeah.
think that at the time when you were going through it?
I did. I absolutely did because I met my husband in my early 40s, and
Mhm.
I had a totally different timeline in mind when I was younger, and I thought now my timeline is way off, and I didn't think it was going to happen.
Right. Well, I'm going to
And
have my daughters listen to this because I have a couple of daughters, one that's in her 40, just turned 40, and another one who is 36. And I can tell by the way they talk about their age and like, it's too late kind of stuff. I'm like, oh my God, okay, what? I'll be 68 and I still have goals I haven't accomplished that I'm still stretching for. So I don't want to hear
yes,
that. I don't want to hear that
mm,
because it is never too late.
no,
No, absolutely not. My friend who is 72, I know some of my other friends are kind of snickering, but I'm not because I believe it. I do believe that because she's been speaking about this it's probably will be the first man she truly meets will probably be the right one because she has believing in this for so long. And
yes,
she hasn't wasted any time trying to make a person into it, she's been very resolute about it. And I think it's going to happen. It's all in the timing, and sometimes you can't rush that. So grateful to have you here on the Vibe Living Podcast, Dr. Michelle. It's been wonderful having you here today.
thank you, thank you.
And I've learned so much. I'm going to have my single girlfriends listen to you.
Sounds good.
They won't listen to me. No. Listen to this, Dr. Michelle, that's for sure. And thank you to all of you for listening to us as we have this chat about dating after 40. I just know that there's someone out who has heard something and has resonated with them. And I'm so glad that you took the time to listen to the podcast. Please take the time also to like, share, comment the podcast, and come back. We've got over 130 something interviews here from women who are just fantastic, who are all experts in the field of mind, body, spirit wellness, some component of it. Guaranteed you'll find something here that's going to add value to your life. Again, thank you, Dr. Michelle, for being here. And thank you to all of you. Have a fantastic day. And don't forget to vibe. Bye bye, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Vibe Living Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and share this podcast. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to vibe. Bye bye, everybody.